All right, today we're diving into a topic that's, well, it's deeply complex, but it's also incredibly important: identity re-stabilization. Now, this isn't just about trying to remember who you were after a really challenging dynamic. It's about the very real, step-by-step process of rebuilding, of actually reclaiming the territory of your own mind. It's a journey, really, from being a managed subject to becoming a sovereign narrator, and we're going to unpack exactly how that works, together.
The most striking truth about identity re-stabilization is that you don't find your old self by looking backward, you build a new self by reclaiming the right to look at all. You know, we generally assume that after years of mind games, we just need to remember who we were. But the reality is, the hardest part is evicting the voice you've been trained to hear inside your own head. So why does acting like yourself often feel like a betrayal of the person who controlled you? This is the core paradox of re-stabilization. That moment you realize your own survival history is the very foundation of your permanent, unshakable self. So here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll dig into that core paradox. Then we'll look at what's called the ghost in the machine, that invisible cage that gets built around you. After that, we're getting into the practical stuff, the mechanics of sovereignty, and the psychological drive that actually powers this whole thing. And finally, we'll cover how to build up your defenses and ultimately become the one and only authorized narrator of your own story.
Okay, let's dive right in with the paradox itself. This whole journey of re-stabilization, it's really a fundamental power shift. It's about the transition from having your identity managed by someone else to narrating it from the inside out. It's about going from being just a character in someone else's story to being the author, the subject, and the hero of your own.
Now, before we go any further, I want to make something really clear. This analysis, it's all about observable patterns and reported experiences. We are not here to diagnose anyone's intent or their character. We're simply exploring the cognitive mechanics of how a human brain can be conditioned over time to see its own healthy drive for autonomy as a source of danger. It's a survival mechanism that's just outlived its purpose. It's like a neural alarm system that's still ringing long after the fire is out. So how does this invisible cage get built in the first place? To get that, let's move on. See, to understand how to reclaim your identity, you first have to understand the architecture of the cage that was built around it. And this is what we're calling the ghost in the machine. It's the set of quiet, systematic mechanisms that can erode a person's sense of self.
There's actually a scientific term for this process: autobiographical reinforcement. And what's really fascinating here is just how widespread this is. This is a cognitive shift that researchers see in all kinds of environments, from high-control organizations to predatory professional circles and even certain enmeshed family systems. The common thread is always a dynamic where loyalty is maintained by systematically and often very subtly deconstructing a person's own version of their life story. And this process usually shows up in two recurring belief patterns. First up, you've got the ghost script. This is that sudden, sharp surge of guilt or anxiety you might feel for having a thought that is 100% your own, a thought that wasn't pre-approved. It's a conditioned response. Then there's identity atrophy. Think of this like a tax on your personality. Your original interests, your unique strengths, your passions, they get subtly taxed with criticism or disapproval until, over time, it just becomes easier to let them fade. Your brain is basically trained to self-silence, just to conserve energy and avoid a fight.
And this perfectly captures one of the most persistent parts of this whole dynamic, the internalized controller effect. This is where the control keeps going, long after the controller is gone. People report finding themselves automatically checking their decisions, even tiny ones, against a phantom version of that person's disapproval. It's like having a ghost editor in your head, constantly redlining your own thoughts. And this can lead to this profound sense of alienation, right? Of feeling like an intruder inside your own light.
So the crucial point here is that re-stabilization is all about making a fundamental transition. It's about moving from mirroring to originating. When you're in a state of mirroring, you're basically a satellite, and your main job is to reflect the needs and the ego of another person. But when you're originating, your actions come from your own core values. You aren't just bouncing back an external signal, you are generating your own. The self isn't just some memory you find, it's a territory you have to actively reoccupy.
And this brings us right to the heart of it all, the actual mechanics of sovereignty. Okay, so if the self is a territory that's been occupied, then what are the specific moves? What are the practical steps you can take to reoccupy your own mind? What are the keys to the kingdom?
Let's just ask the question directly. How does someone begin to evict that internalized voice we just talked about? How do you, as the source material puts it so powerfully, turn the lights back on in a house you forgot you owned? Well, research and reported experiences point to a really systematic three-step pattern. It all starts with step 1, the preference audit. This is about making small, seemingly insignificant, purely personal choices without asking for permission. What music do you want to listen to? What do you actually want for lunch? These tiny choices are acts of revolution. This is somatic re-anchoring. You're reconnecting your decisions to your physical self. Then comes step 2, narrative eviction. This is a cognitive shift where you start to pinpoint specific, harsh self-criticisms and realize where they came from, that they weren't your thoughts at all, but were downloaded from the controller. And finally, step 3, values re-stabilization. This is the power move. Often a person's best traits, like their kindness, were used as handles for control. By consciously redefining what kindness means to you, on your terms, you turn that handle into a shield.
And here's why this sequence is so incredibly effective. Those small embodied choices in the preference audit, they trigger your sense of autonomy. And that feeling of autonomy, in turn, starts to build your narrative sovereignty, your right to write your own story. This cycle is a direct application of neuroplasticity. You are literally carving new pathways in your brain, ones that reinforce your autonomy and weaken the old conditioned responses. People who go through this don't describe it as some loud rebellion, but as a feeling of quiet power.
So why does this work so well on a psychological level? I mean, what's the engine that's actually driving this change? This next section is all about the deep-seated human motivations that make restabilization not just possible, but actually feel natural.
At the very heart of it is a principle called self-efficacy. And it's so important to get that this isn't just some feel-good concept, it's a biological reality. As human beings, we are hardwired to feel safer, stronger, and more competent when we act independently and feel a sense of control over our own lives. It's a fundamental drive that's core to our well-being.
And this sets up a core motivational conflict, kind of a tug of war inside you. On one side, you have the drive for mastery through autonomy. This is your innate push to act for yourself. And here's a key detail. When you act autonomously, your reactions become unpredictable to an external controller, which reduces their influence. But on the other side, you have the conditioning for the need for absolute safety, that deeply ingrained belief that not rocking the boat is more important than being free. The whole process of restabilization is about consciously shifting your focus away from that external need for safety and back toward your internal drive for mastery.
Okay, so you've started to reoccupy your territory. You're reconnecting with your own autonomy. So how do you protect this new growth? This leads us right to our next section, building your defenses. These are the practical tools you can use to create and sustain your awareness over the long haul. A primary defensive tool is something called the voice attribution audit. It's a simple 3-step mental process. Step 1 is just to notice. Acknowledge a self-critical thought as it pops up, but without judging it. Step 2 is to identify the source. Ask yourself a direct question. Is this genuinely my voice, or is this an echo of their voice? And step 3 is to label it. Is this thought a fact, rooted in reality, or is it a download, just an old piece of programming? You see, this isn't about fighting the thought. It's about correctly identifying it. And that simple act interrupts its power. Recognizing the ghost script through the audit lets you develop what the source material calls private territory awareness. And what's really cool about this idea is that it's all about strategic privacy. It's the practice of keeping your new goals, your new ideas, your personal growth just for you for a little while. You refuse to let that internalized controller edit your progress before it even gets a chance to take root. You're basically creating a protected internal greenhouse for your new self to flourish.
And this brings us to our final section, which is really the ultimate goal of this entire process, becoming the authorized narrator. This is where all the pieces, the awareness, the practical steps, the psychology, they all come together to solidify your ownership over your own internal truth.
So, what are the most crucial points to take away from all of this? First, your self-concept is a private territory, and you hold the only set of keys. Second, independence isn't a destination you just arrive at. It's a muscle, and you have to use it consistently to keep it strong. Third, and this one is so important, you interrupt the entire cycle the moment you realize you don't have to be perfect to be free. And finally, awareness is your #1 tool. It's what ensures that no one else's edits are allowed to overwrite your truth.
Which leaves us with this final, empowering thought. Reclaiming your sovereignty really means fully accepting this one simple, powerful fact. Your life, your story, your intentions, they're yours, and only yours to define. You are the only authorized narrator of your own intent.